So hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Simon Hodgkins, and delighted to be joined by Yuka Kurihara. Yuka, a globalization strategy and localization leader. I know she's been helping teams to design and build software products, websites, marketing communications, content, always with a global audience in mind. I know Yuka is currently working as the Director of Globalization Services at a company called Scaled Agile, and we'll find out quite a little bit about those in a moment. She lives and based in New York, and I know is a big health and wellness fan as well. So Yuka, you're very welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Well, let's move on. I have a number of areas I would like to go through with you today. I mentioned Scaled Agile. And I know your career history today, you've worked at some large organizations in the past, some very big global companies. Could you maybe, for our audience, people listening and watching this episode, could you tell us a little bit about Scaled Agile and then maybe a little bit about your role for people that may or may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. Scale Agile is actually a provider of SAFe. SAFe stands for Scale Agile Framework, and it's really a framework for building business agility. We provide learning and certification products, and we have a great network of partners, and we're operating over 50 countries. And there are more than 1 million professionals trained in SAFe. And you might be surprised by the statistics, but 70% of Fortune 100 companies are already using SAFe. So we are really helping these major corporations and government agencies practice SAFe on a day-to-day basis. So I joined Scale Agile team last year to lead the globalization localization efforts. Globalization is a new endeavor at Scale Agile. So I'm basically building everything from scratch, setting up the strategy in terms of which markets to go to and what content to localize, setting up the teams and processes, technology. Pretty much everything. So it's a really big initiative and a really exciting time to be at Scale Agile.
Well, listen, Yuka, thank you for that great explanation about Scaled Agile. I hadn't realized that there was 1 million people involved in that sort of movement, that entity around the world. And also, what was the percentage of the top companies that are already deploying it? You said
70%.
70%. That's very high.
Fortune 100 companies. Yeah,
that's huge. But you also said that you're it's sort of a new endeavor for them, is it? So you're kind of building everything, building the teams, the processes, everything from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So since the inception, Scale Agile framework has been so popular. So,
yes.
The company was able to, become very successful with just English, materials.
Yes.
But, think about it, right? I mean, English only materials, you can reach so much of the world population.
For sure.
I think you only have 25% of the population, world population might speak English. So what about the rest of, 80, 75%, right? So, so we'll have a much greater reach, once we have a localized content.
And I'm sure the 1 million people that you mentioned already, I'm sure that English is not the sort of first language or mother tongue for a lot of those people too.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously you've got your work cut out, Yuka. You've got a big task ahead of you to really, I suppose, internationalize everything that this great company Scaled Agile has been doing.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, it's great that you're doing that. It's great to hear about Scaled Agile. I don't envy the task because it sounds like there's a huge amount of work to do. But let's go back then. So obviously you're in this role because of your experience, qualifications. So how did you get started in this industry when it comes to this internationalization of, to take a brand like Scaled Agile, a company that already has a lot of international reach around the world, and to really build that from scratch? How did you get started in that kind of work?
Well, actually, I'm going back way back then. So since I was little, I was always fascinated by different cultures and different languages. I grew up in a very small town in Japan. So I had a very little exposures to non-Japanese stuff. I mean, Japan is very homogeneous actually. So I really wanted to like experience something different. And I tried to like expose myself to anything that's English or foreign languages that I could get my hands on. I even actually tried to listen to a radio station from American military base. I was playing with the radio, and then I picked up this like signal from American military base, and then I think it was called like a Far East radio, something like that. But it sounded so cool, like I had no idea what they're saying, but I heard it and it was so cool. So I just listened to it, and yeah, even like during my teenage year, I used to spend all my allowance money on like watching American movies and subscription to Time magazine. I actually get the magazine delivered right from the United States so that I can look at the pictures. And then, I had no idea, like I couldn't read it, but I was looking at the pictures and trying to get a sense of what's going on outside of Japan. So I really didn't care what it was, but I just wanted to do something international. So that was my teenage years. And then I had this like miracle opportunity happen during my high school. I was actually chosen to be an exchange student for a Rotary International program, and I came to the United States. So that was my first exposure to like really truly being in another country. And after that, I went to university here in the US and then major in computer science and linguistics. And at the time, I had no idea about localization, never even heard of the word localization. But looking back now, like that was actually really a perfect combination to prepare myself to be in the localization field. And after that, I was really lucky to have many attractive offers from major corporations. Internet was really new back then. So, and then, the computer science major was really a hot commodity, back then. But I ended up taking the opportunity to work for a startup software company in a local area. And they were growing like crazy. And they had a very, very aggressive international expansion plan. So I basically built the localization program there. And then the rest is a history now.
Wow. What a story, Yuka. It's incredible. I love stories like that because, I picture this, you're in this town in Japan, you're listening to English radio, you're reading, well, you're looking at the pictures in Time magazine because you couldn't actually understand the text, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I came here, I couldn't even speak English. So.
Yeah, incredible,
Yeah.
really. And of course, the opportunities that somewhat came your way, but you obviously had to decide your career and your educational journey. And then, it's fantastic that the offers, I suppose, back then you talked about when you were a science major and you're coming out qualified and, you got a number of good offers from large global organizations. And of course, that helps, but also working in that startup growing like crazy environment that you mentioned, there's also great learnings in that world too.
Yeah.
So obviously now with all your expertise from both the startup world and the scaling world and working with those I know you worked at a very large global corporate company as well, with huge international reach. Obviously all that wealth of knowledge and expertise is going to be coming through in your new endeavor at Scaled Agile. So that's brilliant. When you look back over that career, back from the early days of looking at the pictures in Time magazine to what you're able, what you do today with your career and the kind of responsibility and growth that you're looking at in front of you, what do you think has been your career defining moments when you look back? Like, what are the things that you look back on with fond memories, or the biggest learning opportunities? Or
Yeah. So if I took one of the offers from like other companies, like I wouldn't be doing localization right now. Like I'll be working as a developer or something in like IT position, So, that would have been like completely different path. And when I was studying at the university, I actually wanted to be a computational linguist. that's why I major in computer science and linguistics. And if I stay with the path, like I would have been like working on like developing algorithm for machine translation right now, So I guess that's still kind of related to localization, but that's completely different path. And then that really didn't happen either. But anyway, I had like lots of different bosses over the years, and I learned so much, from each manager. But almost like all of them kind of encouraged me to do something different than localization. So when I was part of engineering team, like they would tell me like, oh, you should really switch your career to development or QA or like more like mainstream engineering position. And I was even told that there's no career path for localization. Like I was like really devastated, and many times I even consider like doing something different, but I really loved like what I was doing, and I simply just couldn't think of doing something else. So it's like, what? I'll just build a career path for myself, if you want something, you just kind of have to go after it, right? So no one will do it for you. So I was like, all right, I'll write my own job description, and then so that's the lesson that I learned. And so I got myself, managing the corporate localization department, and I became a director.
Yeah, fantastic. And it is incredible, though, that you don't have to go back a long way to discover that a lot of big brands that we know today, they weren't very sophisticated in their global approach, particularly when it comes to the world of language, linguistics, and making sure that their brand sort of resonated culturally around the world correctly with the right target audiences. And it kind of, it's changed quite a lot, hasn't it? And
Yeah,
probably
it has, definitely. Yeah, localization is extremely strategic, function.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not just translation. It's very, very strategic. Yeah.
yeah. And some people even just thought it was a cost center years ago, and now it's a strategic driver, isn't it? Strategic
Yeah,
leverage. Yeah,
strategic driver, and it's enabler. Yeah, critical
yeah.
piece. Yeah, for international operations. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So when you think about things like, we often hear, and there's often discussions about agile localization. When it comes to the sort of the world that you're living in now, and this sort of way of operating that you want to work in the new organization, when you think about agile localization and how you go about things now, what does that mean to you, Yuka?
Yeah, so originally, looking back now, I was trained in Scrum, like back in 2007. So I've known Agile for quite a long time. But I work for Agile now, so my understanding of Agile has changed quite a bit. Prior to working at Agile, to me, Agile localization was more like synonymous to CDP, like continuous delivery pipeline or continuous localization, like basically like automating file handoffs and getting the files translated very quickly and continuously, and keep doing that updates. And then that's what I used to think of it, and then that's what I used to do, in previous companies. But now I work for probably the most agile company in the world. My perception has changed. Agile is really all about a way of working, like including like values and principles and practices, so it's way beyond tech and processes, like the traditional project management, like tend to focus on like task management or task completion. But new way of thinking is more value driven. And particularly, I'm talking about economic value and maximizing customer value. So like everything you do really should have like hypothesis statements and acceptance criteria. So like what value are you creating by doing this particular task? What must be delivered in order to create value for your customer? It's all value driven, right? So when you can answer these type of questions, like things started to make sense. So yeah, so that's how we practice safe as Agile. Like everyone practices safe and Agile. So Agile is not really just for product development teams, like marketing, like HR, like legal, like finance, like everybody practice Agile and safe. So of course, localization is not an exception. And we plan and execute in iterations, and we do demos and retro in certain cadence. And we always work with like small batches and deliver working products. We ask for feedback and measure the outcome. And based on the outcome, we decide to pivot or persevere. By like doing all of these, right? Like you are being agile, and you can adjust to new demands and changing circumstances or requirements, and very quickly, so that you can stay current and competitive. So Agile is really a new way of working.
Do you know, I love that, Yuka, because often in the language area, you get very quickly, you end up with a continuous delivery type discussion. But it's very interesting to see your perspective on that in terms of the economic value of Agile, and also the value, the values around an Agile way of working. And it was great when you said, I probably work in the world's most Agile company now, because it's almost as though you've got the whole Agile package now.
Yes.
And it's all coming together, and that sort of benefit to the customer, and the benefit to the, the global audience, and the benefit to the company. And it's great to hear it put into that context, as opposed to just thinking of it maybe in a one or two ways from purely a language industry perspective,
Right. Yeah, it's very comprehensive, actually. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. And in terms of then, when you look at it, obviously you're in this safe, agile world now, but when you look at the opportunities to improve localization, whether it's from a process perspective or a structural perspective, what do you think are some of the big opportunities, whether it's at Scaled Agile or just at the industry at large, to improve localization processes?
Yeah, so I guess that's a kind of like really a broad question, and what you may want to focus or improve, might be different depending on your own situation, or the company's maturity level, for your localization program, might be all different there. But I would say like the biggest opportunity is to get invited to a dinner party. So it's always common to hear, right, that the localization is an afterthought, like they get involved at the very end, right? So typically localization team gets to join the party after the main meal is served, and here I'm talking about main meal being development of the English product, right? And then localization team maybe get to have dessert or just coffee at the end, because they're so involved, they get involved so late. But what if like localization was able to have appetizers with the team, right? Meaning influencing design and UX, right? And what if eating the main meal, the main course together with the team, right? Well, it's even better if you are invited to plan for the dinner party itself, meaning developing strategy, so make sure you get invited to dinner party planning, right?
Yeah, brilliant.
And you can tell that I love to eat, right?
I love that, Yuka, because you're right. And a lot of times you'd hear that a particular company or a product launch, it's kind of, it's all developed in one, with one particular group of people. They look at the, does it work? There's a lot of technical input, etc. And then at the end, there's a realization, well, hang on, we need to sell this internationally.
Right. Yeah,
and what you're
you have
saying is,
or too late,
you retrofit it, right? As opposed to what you were talking about earlier, which was this, if it truly is this strategic driver, which we know it is,
right,
you need to have that conversation at the very beginning of the idea, not just at the end. So that's the dinner party, right? You need to be there at the very start.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's a great observation, actually. And you're right to point out, of course, that it depends on the circumstances, depends on the opportunity, depends on the organization. But there is there's still huge learnings in making sure that people integrate this discussion as part of
Right.
the ongoing process, and not just have it as that, as you say, that retrofit.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you are really being proactive, you can plan for like any kinds of dietary restrictions, or, you might have to start gluten-free, or like, whatever, right? I mean, you can like really accommodate that. And then each country situation might be very different, then we might have to address like, laws and regulation for particular regions and stuff like that. Like if you don't think about all those things up front, you are dealing with the showstopper issues, later on. So yeah, so it's really important to be, included as part of the planning.
Couldn't agree more, Yuka. So I mentioned when we started talking today that obviously you're a strategic globalization, localization leader, right? You're an expert in your field, and I'm sure you've mentored many people along the way. But if going back to that person who's not in the language industry, that didn't even speak English and was looking at pictures in a magazine, Time magazine, because they couldn't understand the text, and tuning into English speaking radio just to try and understand that a different culture. If you were talking to somebody today, though, in their environment, in this sort of fast-paced, moving world, connected global planet that we live in, what advice would you give to somebody today who's looking to get into or get started in a similar sort of industry? Because you mentioned earlier, I just had to write my own job description. I just had to start doing things. What would be your
Mm-hmm.
advice today?
Yeah, so I guess for people who are just starting out, I would say find your passion and go after it. And if you don't know what your passion is, take the time to figure it out. Because you don't want to be in the wrong wrong place, because you want to enjoy your life, right? So you can really expose yourself to different areas, and until you find your calling. There's like so much resources out there. You can learn so much, even thanks to internet, right? So yeah, definitely take the time to figure it out. And also, like, I think this is a really old saying, but like, do what you like, and money will follow later. And I think it's true, because if you're doing what you like, it doesn't seem like a job, and you can really put your energy into it. Like a day goes by so fast because you're just enjoying what you do. And then you are actually excited to get up, and not really dragging yourself to get out of the bed. So
I agree.
but
I agree.
yeah, but I think you really have to remember that you are the driver. You are in the driver's seat, in your own career and your life, and you have to drive and steer the car. And then if you're lucky, and if you have a great mentor, you'll really accelerate your growth. And mentor can really kind of like help you like avoid the obstacles, like, oh yeah, there's something coming out, watch out. But he or she, the mentor, is not really not gonna really drive the car for you. They are more like in a passenger seat. So yeah, if you can find a mentor, I think the journey is a lot more fun, because you have a partner on the ride, rather than like driving the car yourself.
No, that's lovely, and it's interesting because you mentioned earlier as well that you had many good bosses along the way and people that you worked with that gave you advice. But even during that advice, there were times where somebody said to you, "Oh, there's no future, there's no career in localization," and yet because you had that passion, that desire,
Mm-hmm.
so it was a combination. It's a combination of sort of mentors, people to help you along the way, but also, as you say, taking the time to decide what direction you want to going, and something that you enjoy too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, I spend a lot of time with my team, like really helping them, shape their career. And
yeah.
yeah, it's really rewarding to really see all of them progress, over time. So yeah, so it's a
Well,
very fulfilling
I
experience.
think I'd be fairly confident that if you'd have chosen the other path and you were writing the algorithms and the AI for machine translation, it would be just as good. So
Just as good, but I don't. I
yeah.
think I'm too social to be a developer. Actually, think.
Well, listen. Before I know we're coming towards the end of our time here, and we've kind of touched on a lot of things. It's been great. I just wanted to also mention the fact that you've also been a judge for the Think Global Awards, and I wanted to just thank you publicly to thank you for your help and support with the Think Global Awards, because we've actually just, at the time of recording this, we've just wrapped up on year 5 of entries for the Think Global Awards. And it's actually grown again for the 5th year. We're just extremely happy and humbled by how well it goes every year. It just continues to grow. And I know you've been a big supporter of the Think Global Awards and the fact that you've also joined one of the previous year judging panels. But I wanted to ask you, if I can, a little bit about, you mentioned you've worked with a lot of the team and you try to help a lot of the team along the way. And to some small degree, that's what we're trying to do with the Think Global Awards, to recognize sort of people and organizations who, think globally and maybe think a little bit differently. But I just wondering, do you think those are really important initiatives, or should we be doing more of those as an industry? Because it's, to some degree, as you say, back to that afterthought rather than being at the main dinner party. What's your view on that as a prior judge?
Yes, absolutely important. I think this is a really great initiative. And I'm really happy to be able to contribute as a judge in the previous year. So thank you for the invitation. When you think about awards like this, people might think like, oh, you have to be in like a big tech company to win, but that's not always true. Like if you're like, let's say, startup company and you're super innovative and you're thinking globally, right from the get-go, you have a fair chance to win. So the nomination is really open globally. So you are truly competing at the global level. So that's really, really exciting. And it's a tremendous honor to win an award like this. And it's just really, really amazing recognition. So that really moves you really, really far. And by the way, Simon, I was actually supposed to attend the award ceremony back in April 2020, and due to COVID, I had to cancel the flight. So I still have the voucher, actually, flight voucher, and I need to use it before the ticket expires. So can I attend the award ceremony?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think I've got to. I hate to say it, Yuka, but I think the award. Well, we announced the shortlist in February 2022, and we'll be announcing the winners in April 2022. I hope we can do them in person, but I kind of feel as though we'll probably have to do them virtually again this year.
Okay.
But of course, you're definitely on the VIP list, so don't worry.
All right.
The Think Global Forum, actually, with the awards came out of the Think Global Forum, and I know you're a forum executive with the Think Global Forum, but the last in-person event was well over a year ago now. We did it in Amsterdam just as COVID was kicking off, and we had to shut down and move everything virtually. So last year we did a week-long Think Global Forum summit, and we actually did a Think Global Forum very, very recently, talking about world UX and the importance of UX for a lot of organizations. So the Think Global Forum and the Think Global Awards continues to go from strength to strength, albeit in this hybrid online world, but we're very much hoping to get back to seeing each other again in person. Yuka, it would be wonderful.
Definitely.
So look, before we wrap up, I just wanted to say, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, whether it's about the industry that we're in or about Scaled Agile, or anything that we maybe haven't touched on so far?
Yeah, so maybe I'll share a very simple, very simple, easy tool with you today. I do this every year in December, and I find it very, very useful. So I'm gonna share it. It's called "What's on Your Radar," and it's one of the design thinking techniques. And I've been doing this for several years now. So what you want to do is first you take a blank sheet of paper like this, and you draw a big circle on the paper, and then you draw another circle inside of the big circle, and then you draw another circle inside of the second circle. So now you have 3 circles within. And then what you want to do next is you put what's most important for you to accomplish in a center circle, the tiny circle. So the circle is tiny, so you're only gonna have like 1 or 2 things that you can put in. And then outer circle, you're gonna put second most important things you wanna accomplish. And then the third outer circle, which is the farthest one out, you're gonna put the third most important things. And when you do this, and you wanna basically put it up on the wall and then review it and then track your progress and all that. But what's really important is you visualize what you want to accomplish. And once you put it on the paper and visualize, it's a lot easier to put it into action. And then you have to also share this radar with your family members or friends. You can even do it with your team too. So once you share that with your family and friends, right, they're gonna check up on you. It's like, hey, did you work on an item that you had on your radar? So that kind of, they'll make you kind of like hold you accountable, right? So it's a really great exercise. I mean, you can even start to create like a different dimensions, like, you want to make some progress around like health or finance or relationship or even like a vacation target, So I love, doing this visualization on what's on your radar. And then you'll be really surprised like how much you can accomplish once you put it on paper. So I do this every December. So I just wanted to,
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing that. I've actually just sketched 3 circles as you've been talking.
All right.
Is there any I just want to make sure I'm getting the rule. Is there any restrictions on how many I can put in each circle? Or is it best to have...
be able to put it, the key is you have to put it in the circle.
Yeah.
Right? That's why that's the center
smaller
circle
one
is
the most important, so there's less in that one.
Yeah, prioritize what's most important. So you can put like 1 or 2 things, right? Because
that's all.
You write a tiny thing, you cannot fit that many. So
I love that. And then you've got this radar about your first most important thing, second and third in these sort of circles. Yeah, brilliant, really good. A simple exercise and something that helps you keep visually focused on what's important, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much indeed for sharing that, Yuka. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege once again to talk to you and to see you, albeit virtually via the wonders of the internet. I do wish you the very best. It sounds like you've got a lot of exciting times ahead at Scaled Agile and an awful lot of work to do when it comes to building out that new sort of development function, teams, people. So continued success with everything you do, Yuka.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. It was, I had a great time. Thank you, Simon.
Me too. Thank you very much. The pleasure's all mine. So look, that's the end of today's show with Yuka Kurihara. Please make sure to tune in again. Well, once again, we hope to be talking to more interesting people from all around the world. Thanks a lot, Yuka. Really appreciate that.